Hi, welcome back to Exploring Politics. I'm your host, Peter Rapp, and today we bring you a panel discussion on the inauguration which occurred on January 20th. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So as I said before, we are going to be discussing and breaking down all of the biggest events and takeaways from the inauguration of President Donald Trump, which occurred this last Monday, January 20th, also MLK Day. Today on our panel, we have three guests with us, recurring members. MJ, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Absolutely. My name is MJ Griffin. I am a senior here at LaSalle University. And would you like me to start with how I felt about the inauguration?
Let's all introduce yourselves first.
Slow down here. Okay. My name is Matthew Burr. I'm a freshman here at LaSalle, and I'm majoring in political science.
And my name is Deslin Long. I'm a sophomore political science and history double major, as well as president of our school's history club.
All right, thank you all. Now, first, we kind of have a very loose structure. Only one issue today, and that is the inauguration. But first, we're going to start with the executive orders that Donald Trump signed in when he came into office on Monday. So he put a lot into place, and he took a lot out of place. I have a list here of the executive orders that he declared. Those are ending illegal discrimination and restoring merit-based opportunity, encouraging the private sector to end illegal DEI discrimination and preferences, ending radical, wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing, and defending women from gender ideology extremism, and restoring biological truth to the federal government. And in addition to signing those into power, he also got rid of a couple of Biden's executive orders, those being the non-displacement of workers under service contracts, ethics commitments by executive branch personnel, advancing economy efficiency and effectiveness in federal contracting by promoting pay equity and transparency, and safe and secure and trustworthy development of and use of artificial intelligence. Now, would we like to discuss your thoughts on all of these executive orders signed in and the ones he's taken away? Who would like to go first with your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would definitely like to start with the repealing of the Equal Employment Opportunity Act of 1972.
Yep.
This order specifically protected people of all races, genders, sexual orientations, religions from being fired for one reason or another because of those traits.
Mm-hmm.
And repealing that, I think, sets us back to before 1972 when it was initially signed. I think it's a terrible idea, but outside of it being an idea, I'm very concerned for not only myself, but like other students like me who are going into the workforce in this market in which I could be fired if, say, I got pregnant and I was unable to work and had to go on maternity leave. I could lose my job because of that. So things like that are going in, as well as the mass deportation executive orders that have been put out, especially targeting sanctuary cities like Philadelphia. And in Philadelphia, we won a lawsuit not too long ago back in the Kennedy administration, which prevented Trump in the first administration from cutting off like federal funding to the city for not participating in these ICE raids. And just going off of that, the ICE raids are not what I believe America to be about. I'm very concerned. It's almost like we have a big sign somewhere that says, "Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." And without that, I feel like these mass deportations take away who we are as Americans. And not only that, but the economic consequences of this is it's going to tank the GDP. If you thought the price of eggs was bad now, oh boy, do I have some news for you.
We can go more into all of that in a moment, but now we are going to go to Matt Barra for your thoughts on all of this.
Well, I think a lot of the executive orders that Donald Trump has signed on his first day and is continuing to sign are less so conservative and more so just populist ideas. People don't want discrimination in the workforce, and that's why people advocate for getting rid of DEI. Right? Martin Luther King had a dream. That dream was that people should not be discriminated against on the color of their skin, but by the quality of their character. DEI goes against that. That's why we're seeing DEI getting rooted out by people like Elon Musk and Doge in these various government departments. People wonder, why are we a part of the World Health Organization, WHO? What does the WHO do? They advocate for gender mutilation of children. These are not things that fly with the American people. Why are we a part of the Paris Climate Accords? We have significantly less global emissions, carbon emissions, than China, which is also a part of the Paris Climate Accords. Yet they have 4 times the amount of carbon emissions that we do, and they're not stopping anytime soon. And nor is there evidence that if we were to completely halt all of our carbon emissions, that's actually going to do anything when you have all of these other countries like India, China, who are also emitting carbon emissions at such a high level. Ultimately, I think that Donald Trump's policies are policies that are going to put the American people first. They're very populist, less so conservative, more just populist. And I think that's what people like about him, and that's why he got voted in.
All right, thank you, Matt. And now we are going to move to Des for what are your thoughts on all this?
Respectfully, Matt, I would have to disagree. Well, I would agree with you that they are very populist. I mean, it is a well-known fact that Donald Trump is a populist. I mean, we've seen that ever since he's been running on his first campaign. But just because he's a populist doesn't mean that these ideas are not bad ideas. It doesn't mean that they're going to be absolutely amazing and wonderful for our country. I mean, I won't consider myself to be an expert on DEI, of course. I mean, I sit here before you all as an African-American man on this news show who has the opportunity to go to university and be able to actually sit here before and get an education. Not a lot of people actually have that. A lot of people have that opportunity from some people who are from similar backgrounds, such as myself. I mean, I am only one of a handful of people in my very large family who are actually able to go to college and hopefully graduate with a degree. So DEI just wants to ensure that, you said it is about putting the American people first. I mean, our minorities, they are also the American people as well. This is not just a white country. This is not a country only for white people. It never has been, and it never should be. It is a country for all people who want to be able to come here to the United States and be able to join into our workforce, join into our economy, and be able to contribute back to their community. And things such as his bans on DEI, getting rid of these immigrants, these quote-unquote illegal immigrants who are coming in here, I can understand, and part of me can, and I will support deporting illegal immigrants who have committed violent crimes. But for these people who are just trying to make it through their day and just be able to, live their life and not have to worry about anything, these people are helping our workforce. I mean, there was I saw an interview on, I believe, ABC News a few weeks ago, and there was a farmer in, I want to say, North Dakota. It was one of the Dakotas. But he told the news reporter, that yes, I voted for Donald Trump, but if he actually goes through with banning illegal immigrants, kicking them all out, my farm will not be able to run for 2 days. It'll have to shut down after only 2 days because we simply do not have the workers. We simply do not have the capabilities. And this also goes back on to the American people. I mean, in my class that I had before, this political economy of Latin America, we talked about how a lot of the reason these people are able to work these jobs is because Northern Americans just don't want to do these jobs. These are grueling, back-breaking jobs that I guarantee I wouldn't want to do them, and I can assure you that any one of us up here would not want to do them as well. So we need to rely on these people who are, and unfortunately, as bad as it is, we shouldn't have to, but we do rely on these people to come in and do those grueling and back-breaking jobs that normal Americans don't want to do. And if anyone disagrees with that and they want to say, oh, kick them all out anyway, why don't you go up and do those jobs? Please feel free to step into their shoes and see how hard that work actually is.
I think that's a fair point, and that is a big impact on the economy that we are going to see. And we are going to go into the, economic ramifications and our vision for what is going to come of America in the next couple of years under Trump's presidency in a couple minutes. But first, I would like to just wrap up this section focusing on his executive orders that he signed day one, looking at a lot of the executive orders that he promised he was going to sign, a lot of the things he promised he was going to do, he did not follow through on, or that's not how the law works. For example, the removal of birthright citizenship, which he promised he was going to sign in on day one. He did sign an executive order. However, that is not how citizenship works. That's not how granting it works. That executive order doesn't really do anything. Along with that, the mass wave of deportations he promised on day one, they haven't come yet. He did give more power to ICE to go into places that were previously considered to be like sacred ground. You know, they were not able to go into churches or I believe hospitals, schools. Yeah, they weren't able to go in there to remove immigrants, but now they are. So we definitely could see a wave of deportations that he promised, but he hasn't quite, fulfilled that promise that he had made yet. But we are going to go on to a section now, which let's focus on the criticisms of events that have been happening. A lot of the very hot topics that have occurred, such as Elon Musk and his very worrying salute that he made during the inauguration speech. A lot of people have criticized the front row of the inauguration being all oligarchs, very wealthy billionaires in America. We'll shift to that. And now, if we do have any things that relate to the economy, you can obviously bring them up, but we'll spend a good chunk of our episode at the end talking about all that.
Okay. So watching the inauguration, I personally felt like I was watching a moment in history in which the United States fell to fascism. And I say that specifically because there was a row of oligarchs who own majority of this country's wealth, and I would argue a majority of the world's wealth, sitting in the front where governors usually sit. And the collusion between government and business is an oligarchy. And I would also like to point out on top of that, let's just call it what it was. Elon Musk's salute was a Nazi salute. That was a Nazi salute. It wasn't a Roman salute. He wasn't throwing his heart out to the crowd. And I would disagree with anybody who tries to defend it, because at the end of the day, we know what it was. It wasn't a dog whistle. It was blatant, clear as day. And like I said, let's just call it what it was. I found it disgusting. And it's socially acceptable now. It shouldn't be, but it is. This is the America that we live in now, and I'm very disappointed by that.
I think that's a very fair way to feel about this. Matt, do you have
with respect to the salute, I can pull up videos of Tim Walz right now as he's walking onto stage doing the exact same thing. He's putting his hand on his heart and putting his hand up. This idea that this person who's also been accused of being this radical Zionist is somehow a Nazi sympathizer, I think it's totally it's a total stretch of the imagination. And this notion that there's this massive collusion between, you mentioned collusion between sort of government and big businesses. I mean, let's not pretend that Republicans are the ones colluding with big businesses. Facebook CEO came out and said that the government under Joe Biden was actively pressuring them to silencing Americans. The Democrats have been in bed with big businesses for years now, and they're funded. Where do you think Kamala Harris got that $1 billion that she used in her campaign that she blew through? It's from billionaires, from people who support her, from Jeff Bezos, from all of these people who support the Democrat Party. I mean, it goes from both sides. This notion that as Donald Trump is coming into office, that this new reign of an oligarchy is going to set in. I just think it's absurd.
Well, I'm so sorry, Des. Going back to the salute for a second, I would want to point out that he, and as Des had previously said before the show started, he is a supporter of, what is it?
Well, I was going to talk about this. Yeah, my fault. So listen, it doesn't help the fact, Matt, anyone can call it what it is. I mean, it doesn't help the fact that Elon Musk has voiced support in the past for the Alternative for Germany, aka the AfD party, which is Germany's current far-right party, that Musk said, quote, would save Germany from its ongoing problems. Now, he's been saying this since December, even so going so far as to host a live on his ex-Twitter platform, whatever you want to call it nowadays, with the candidate Alice Weidel, who is the AfD's candidate for chancellor on February 20, has elections on February 23rd. Now, the AfD has been having, their main thing is they're against immigration, especially Muslim immigration. Their main priority is anti-Muslim immigration in Germany. And they have also been accused of having xenophobic remarks. Now, not even just that, he also advocated just this month for the release of anti-Islam extremist Tony Robinson, who is from the UK and was actually the founder of the English far-right party, the English Defence League. Now, again, if it was anyone else, you could say, all right, maybe he was putting his hand on his heart and giving it out to people. Maybe it was doing this or doing that. But for someone, for someone who has all these different things backing up against him, you can't ignore it.
So you actually believe that Elon Musk
Matt,
put his hand up and actually was making a Nazi salute? Like that's your take today?
Yeah, Matt,
that is my take.
There
Yes.
is a video of him in a room full of giving a presentation to Tesla shareholders in 2023, putting his hand on his heart, and then he goes like that.
Okay.
My heart goes out to you. That's how he has done that motion in the past. So to say now that is how he was simply saying, my heart goes out to you, it feels a little disingenuous because it is not a similar motion at all. The idea that since he is a Zionist, he could not also be a fascist is weak at best. If they're not mutually exclusive. There are lots of...
So what do you think that he wants then? If he supports the Jewish people and he's came out and said that he supports the Jewish people, how could he be a Nazi?
Well, supporting Israel isn't necessarily supporting all Jewish people.
Well, but he said he supports the Jewish people and their right to defend themselves against Hamas.
He is referring to Israel there, but he is making the anti-Semitic...
The Jewish people.
I think making the generalization that all of Israel is all Jews and all Jews are for Israel is a dangerous and anti-Semitic generalization to make. So if that is what he is doing, I am not in support of that, and I think that one can be for the existence of a state without being for the existence of the people in that state. And I think that's what Elon is.
But Peter, I'm not asking whether or not you support him saying that he supports the Jewish people or the state of Israel. I'm asking you to clarify because there seems to be a philosophical inconsistency. On one hand,
I don't think there is. That's what I'm saying.
I think we let him talk.
On one hand, you're trying to suggest that Elon Musk is somehow a Nazi who's now coming out of the closet and just making it clear in front of millions of Americans that he's a Nazi. But on the other hand, he's came out on multiple occasions and says that he supports the state of Israel's right to defend itself. So which is it?
I think that the anti-Semitism of Nazism is a result of something inherent to fascism itself. Fascism needs an other to scapegoat, to beat on, to destroy. So for Nazi Germany, it was the Jews. But right now in Germany, with the AfD, for example, it's Muslim immigrants. For example, in the United States, many have argued that it's immigrants from Latin America. Fascism is not dependent on the specific group of people that you are directing hate towards. It is a general, having that idea of hate in the first place, mixed in with policy, mixed in with the structure of government and politics, that is what makes it fascism. And I feel like Elon going up and doing the salute, it might not mean that he is an ideological Nazi from 1939, but it is an allusion to fascism that I think is dangerous.
I mean, if Elon Musk is a fascist, he's a pretty bad fascist, considering he wants for there to be a literal Department of Government efficiency and transparency to the American people.
Hitler did a similar thing.
So did Mussolini, who just wanted the
But
trains to run on time.
I would also like to argue the fact that, Matt, when you were saying this, you were talking about how can he support the Jewish people as well as support the Nazis. I would also go as far as to argue that he only supports himself. I mean, Elon Musk has said in the past, I used to vote Democrat, but then I see the things that the Democrat people have done, like that doesn't support me. I don't support their views anymore. I'm switching to a Republican aspect. You do not become the richest man in the world without buying and mingling your way and getting to know your way around how to work the people, if you will. And that's something that a lot of politicians and a lot of billionaires are able to do. They're able to work the people, know your audience, if you will. Now, I'm not saying that that every I want to clarify, I'm not calling every Republican a neo-Nazi. I'm not calling every Republican a white supremacist. But I am saying if you were to look at the people that these neo-Nazis and white supremacists who are in the United States, because let's be honest, they are there. I mean, just look at Charlottesville, or even up in they just had a rally recently somewhere. I'm blanking on right now. But they support the Republican Party. People always argue that the party of the neo-Nazism and the Confederates and everything such as that's the Democratic Party. But these modern-day neo-Nazis, modern-day white supremacists support the Republican Party. And again, I'm not saying that every person in the Republican Party is one of those people, but Elon Musk and those other politicians know how to work the people. And it's not just the Republicans too. I will come out there and admit it is the Democrats as well. And quite frankly, from both sides, it is absolutely despicable because you're lying to the people in order to get your vote. I think that's something we all can agree on.
I think that's a fair analysis. Now let's move on. We've spent a lot of time on that. I think our discussion on that has been pretty thorough, and I think we've expressed most of what there is to express there without being repetitive. So let's move on now to what we think will be accomplished by this administration, how we see the next 4 years going, and generally what our outlook is. We will have time for final thoughts after, but just overall overview. MJ, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. So just what has been happening in recent days, I would call a complete blast to the past is what's happening in this country, and I feel like it's going to keep continuing. With the mass deportations, let's just touch on the drop in GDP that's going to happen. As Des previously stated, when you, and I believe I said this on a previous episode, but when you take off a majority of a labor force in a specific industry, there's going to be a lack of workers. And, well, that's self-explanatory, but that's not what I meant. When you have a lack of workers, lack of production, lack of available product, prices are going to go up. Yeah. And on top of that, the tariffs that he's allegedly going to put in place are also going to have devastating effects on our economy, because those tariffs are going to be passed on to the consumers. It's consumers like me and you and everybody on this panel who are going to be paying the price for that. And like I said, if you think the price of eggs is bad now, oh boy. And it's these businesses are bracing for this. I saw a story, it was somewhere in Pennsylvania, a manufacturing company, where they had spent the Christmas bonuses on new product because they were worried about what would happen with the tariff. So, yeah.
I think that is something to be worried about, especially with everything he said he's going to do. Is he going to? I don't know, but that is something to keep in mind now. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree, MJ, to the extent that we're definitely going to see a return to the old. I think the sort of election analysis is that we tried something new in 2016. People ended up deciding they wanted something different, so we went to Joe Biden. And then that turned out to be a total disaster, so we went back to the old guy. And so what we're going to see is a return back to the sort of policies of 2016, this kind of American exceptionalism. One thing that struck out to me when I was watching Trump's inaugural speech is when he mentioned manifest destiny. That really struck me, because I think this really embodies what Donald Trump sees in America. And this sort of the philosophy of Donald Trump is something that we really haven't seen the extent of since someone like Reagan, this idea of putting America first. America truly is an exceptional nation that he would even make the case could expand its borders potentially. I think that that's something we're going to see with regards to the immigration. I don't think that there's going to be these sort of massive deportations. I think what we're seeing is what he promised in large part, which was he's going to take out the cartels. One of the executive orders he signed was, of course, designating them as a terrorist organization. The question I have is, why weren't they already a terrorist organization? Now we're going to be able to use military, and we're going to be able to take care of them. So I think these are the policies, this kind of America First agenda that's going to embody Trump's second term.
As well as families and children, but who's counting?
My thoughts on the issue. I mean, I can agree that, I can agree with an American First agenda. I can agree with American exceptionalism agenda, but this is just not the way to go with it, in my opinion, especially with massive manifest destiny. I think that we just don't need a return to American imperialism. I mean, we've seen all throughout, again, I'm a history major, we've seen all throughout history how much of an impact, a detrimental impact imperialism has had on not just the people of the homeland society, but also the society that is being exploited. I mean, why do you think we had the American Revolution back in 1776? Because we got tired of imperialism. But in terms of what I think was going to happen with this term, I think that a lot of the things that he said he'll do, I don't think that many of them will happen. Again, like I could agree with some Matt as well. I think that the widespread deportation, I don't think that will happen to the extent where he claimed the largest deportation in history. I don't think that will happen to that extent. I also don't think that he'll be able to lower the prices of eggs, get them to all lower down, because if not, why did he sign an executive order forcing, the Federal Reserve or anything to do that? So I think that, and this is something else I can agree with Matt on, it'll be a return to the old Donald Trump in 2016, where he's just all talk and nothing to show for it. And then, like usual, I think we need to really pay attention to the 2026 midterms, because as usual with these elections, the opposite party takes place, and I would love to see how the Democratic-controlled Congress will fight with President Trump.
All right, well, yeah, thank you for your thoughts. Now we are going to go to our final thoughts, just to give a general overview on your thoughts on everything we've discussed today. I would just like to say that I think it will be a return to the old. All of his rhetoric is appealing to times gone by that many of us were not alive to be in. Even his actions, the executive orders, repealing things that go back decades, manifest destiny, a concept that goes back centuries. We are going to see a big push backwards. Now, this could obviously go wrong in many ways. It could not. We don't know how it's going to go, but these years are going to be tumultuous. MJ, your final thoughts.
Yeah, real quick. I feel as if by the end of this term, I will most likely have less rights than my mother. I think this administration is going to not only devastate our economy, but divide America even further. And while half of the population did vote for him, there is another half that didn't. And at the end of the day, I think this opens the door for fascism to seep into our country, and I fear for not only our people, but the Constitution in and of itself.
Thank you. Matt?
I think over these next few years, we're going to see a return to the pioneering aspect, the entrepreneurial spirit that sort of was present at the start of American history. I think we're going to see a return to that has largely gone away. I think we're in for a safer America. I think we're in for a safer world. It's no surprise that Hamas is releasing Israeli hostages, American hostages. That's not because of Joe Biden. That is because of Donald Trump. That is because that nations around the world respect and fear Donald Trump, and they're afraid of what he can do. So I think we're in for a solid next 4 years.
All right, and now, Des, your final thoughts?
Yeah, all I'll say is this, being a history person, I think that I consider myself to be an optimistic. I'm ashamed of many of the things that our country has done in its history, but I still choose to love and believe in it, because I believe that we can advance into the future and overcome everything that has happened. And I'll say that we don't need an old man to be leading us into the future like that. Not even just an old man, older members of Congress in general. And I would also like to add that, a bit ironic, but I think we need to harken back to George Washington's farewell address, in order to help move us into the future and remove partisan politics and put the good of the American people first.
Thank you, Des. Now, thank you all for being here with us this episode. We have had quite the lengthy and heated discussion amongst ourselves about what we see coming of this presidency. But I would just like to remind you all that at the end of the day, we have this show to foster a good community of political discussion. We strive to keep politics open and free amongst all of us. But most importantly of all, go Birds. Thank you all. See you.